What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode 373. My favorite kind of episode, front or back. It's the same.
It's the palindrome.
That's what it is. And just like every episode, my name's Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts, and I'm here with
Ron.
And John.
Sometimes I like to wonder, like, if maybe the expression that Ronald has when he says his name, it's like he's in a race, you know, like it's like a Ron. And yeah. I just want one episode. I want to hear John just like jump in there and see if it's like cut him off at the corner, and just see how he reacts to it. Because it's like
we can try it that way. We can try it that way where I'm like trying to step on the back of Ron. Let's try it. Let's do it again, Steve. Just say who you are.
My name is Steve, and one of the co-hosts of the show. And as always, I'm here with.
My name is Ron,
and I'm John.
It sounds the same, I guess.
Yeah.
It was 6 and 1.
I had to wait for him to finish that time because he threw me off. But yeah, it's something we say every time, and we always seem to be rediscovering how it's going to work. There's always a sense of how's this going to go. You know,
I rely on the way it sounds, but like for some reason in my mind, I'm always like kind of passively like looking for something. Like what's different about it this time? And it's like, it's just like it's a tried and true, but it's like one time I'm waiting for you to say your name wrong or something, you know. It's like Ron. Oh wait, I mean, I'm John. You're Ron. You know. Oh man, good times. Episode 373, back at the pod, and this week's kind of like a thinner episode. We don't have a ton of content this week. There's a big movie coming out. There's a couple big movies coming out. We talked about Air last week. We were able to review that a little early. That'll be out, in theaters now, actually, by the time we're recording this and you're listening to it. And the other big one is obviously the Mario Brothers movie, which Ronald was able to go see at an advanced screening earlier this week. So in a little bit, he'll get into his review of that and tell us how it was. But before we get there, we have his required viewing pick of the week. And obviously we'll get into some like random things we may have seen at the end of the episode. But at the start here, were there any news items that either of you wanted to just hit quickly, since we have a little more space in this episode, before we move on? Anything standing out to you this week? I had one I want to mention, but I'll hold it and see if anybody else wants to say anything.
Ronald, do you have anything on the?
Not that I can think of, honestly. Anything when you're in, John?
I mean, I kind of enjoyed the Secret Invasion trailer that Marvel put out. We talked about it maybe in brief last time, but I'm excited about Asteroid City. That trailer is out. I did not start watching it, but I saw the trailer for the new season of Dave, and I noticed that a couple of episodes, I think, or at least one episode came out already of Dave. So I'm excited about that. So like I have been doing that thing of hitting YouTube and watching trailers. I don't do that all the time, but every now and then I get into a little frenzy of just trying to find everything I can find. So I feel like I've been, not necessarily a trailer roundup of each specific item, but there's a lot of things on the horizon. Barry season 4, which I think is the last season of Barry. There's a trailer out for that looks incredible. The marketing for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is ratcheting up. So yeah, I've been watching the skies. I didn't know if anybody had anything like that was jumping out.
Yeah, I think this week we had two pretty big trailers. The Spider-Verse trailer, the new full one dropped, and the trailer for Barbie dropped. Which, especially, I mean, Spider-Verse, we talked about it a little bit on our thread last time. Like the trailer, the first one it took a couple watches to get me as excited as I thought I would be. I mean, obviously I'm super in on this, and this is probably one of my top 2 or 3 movies of the year in terms of anticipation, but I feel like the new trailer really just knocked me out. I mean, like goosebump kind of trailer. Some sequences that just look like they just kind of, did what won on the Oscar last time, which just has an amazing story that looks incredible and kind of just ups the game across the board. And, early word on this movie from, what I've heard or read about a little bit is just, pretty, pretty special. And I'm not sure about Barbie. I think Barbie could be a pretty massive flop.
It looks fun, but it is sort of hard to see. Yeah. Like I don't know that that's even a mark of anything, but it's definitely something you can kind of sense on the horizon about a movie. Like it seems like if there is a way to turn that IP, that weird IP,
Right.
into something, I don't know that this is the mass market version of that. But I don't know what it would be. I mean, I almost feel like it's one of those things where you almost have to do a commentary on it, which is what they're doing. Obviously, a little bit of a satire. But yeah, it's like it's hard to imagine like this is for people that have grown up with Barbie or have outgrown Barbie or something. But this is
Right.
not like a straight. Not that I'm saying there should be a straight Barbie movie. I don't know. It does feel like it's hard to know what the niche for this thing is. However, the pedigree, written and directed by Greta Gerwig and the cast, everyone who's popping up in it, it does look like they're doing everything they can to make it seem like there's a lot of fun to be had here, and look at all these people showing up to have fun. But I can't tell what it is just yet. But there's a couple jokes in the
Yeah, I
trailer
think I
that
saw
I
it was
thought were clever.
co-written by Baumbach, right? He
Yeah.
has a co-writer credit on it.
That's right.
But yeah, the cast is crazy. I mean, yeah, it looks like something where everybody just kind of came to be a part of something fun and unique. And I think it'll be both of those things. I just
Right.
don't know in terms of performance, like really what kind of audience it finds, especially kind of when it's coming out, because I think it comes out the same day as Oppenheimer and the week after something else that's like kind of in the same kind of lane as this movie, but it's a very kind of congested time
Yeah.
of the summer when it comes out. But
Well, it does look fun. But yeah, I am thinking like who is going to be what's going to be that thing that is it going to be like good word of mouth? What would it take for this movie to seem like it's a down the middle kind of movie? But maybe they're not trying to make a down the middle movie. Maybe they're trying to make
it's
something
not. It's for sure not.
Yeah. It's a lot more adult than I thought it was going to be. I think it's like really dirty jokes in the trailer. And I'm like, what is this rate? Is this rated PG? Is it?
I don't even know if it's been rated yet.
Yeah, it feels a lot more adult than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be like kind of a Lord and Miller kind of, everything everywhere all at once. And just
I
in
think it
terms
has
of
the
like
potential to be like a Lego movie for a different group, but I still don't know. Basically, like there's lore and mythology surrounding the Barbie characters that I'm not plugged into. Even as someone who had a sister with all the dolls, and I had a Ken doll, I think, growing up, like I didn't know what whatever stories have been told with these characters are completely unknown to me. So I don't know what they're tapping into there, but it does seem like there's a lot of jokes to be had with the sort of I don't know, similar to what they did with Barbie and Ken in the Toy Story movies, of just kind of showing these like blow these characters out, these like super white bread sort of affluent characters, kind of blow the concept of that out. And I think they're playing around with the idea that there've been a lot of different Kens over the years, different designs. And so
I don't know if all the Kens are going to be straight guys.
Yeah. No,
see, some of the casting, I'm noticing something, a pattern. It's going to be interesting.
I like the visual joke of when she's out of her shoes and you see her walking, and she's got the high heeled arched feet. But yeah, so I don't know. I feel like there was something else that I saw a trailer for that I'm getting hyped for, but I'm not. Oh, maybe it was they released those images of John Hamm in Fargo season 5, which is the first we've seen of that. But he looks like a cool cowboy sort of lawman, which I wasn't sure. They were saying this season was going to be one of the more comedic seasons of Fargo, and knowing he was going to be in it, I was picturing him doing a full on like George Clooney for the Coens goofball sort of performance. But it looks like he's doing like a straight heroic character, perhaps, or at least a straight character. So we'll have to see what that is. But no, there's a lot of cool stuff coming up. Anytime I think that a lot of stuff has just ended or a lot of stuff has already happened and there wasn't much left to, they've invented everything. There's nothing left to see. And then you realize, no, wait, there's a ton of cool shows coming back and new stuff and all the movies we've mentioned and more. So but yeah, Spider-Verse is definitely one that I just feel like everybody is expecting it to be great. And so maybe you do have to find your way, Steve, with that trailer or the second trailer or whatever it's going to take to make you go, okay, I see what they're doing here. I think there's one thing that they've just given themselves over to, which is, this is a multiverse story, not a Miles Morales story. And I think that's cool. I'm okay with that. But if the second one had just been a Miles Morales story and it didn't have anything to do with other spider people, I think I would have found that cool too. So it's interesting to see what they're doing. They really are using the animation in a meta sense to indicate different worlds, and just the glimpses of all the crazy stuff you see in the trailer I expect it to be like, eye popping, even if it doesn't, for whatever reason, hit as emotionally hard as the first one did. But I think it looks great. Well, do we want to move on to required viewing then, or just
I have
Steve,
my one news item.
Oh,
I
your
wanna
one news
mention.
item, right?
Yeah.
You did not.
I
Bring it up.
just kind of want to mention it because it's been kind of a topic of conversation. Not this news item, but the person involved, and it just kind of reeks of a lot of the discussion that we've had around him recently. And that, have either of you seen the video that The Rock released on,
No.
was it Monday or Tuesday, about the announcement of the live action Moana?
Yes, I have the Moana.
No.
Yes.
I mean, you got to seek it out and watch it just to kind of, bear witness to like how big someone's ego could be. But I just feel like it's another one of those things that we were describing last time where it's just like it feels so obvious that he's making some very, very pointed pivot because of what didn't work in the DC EU and like the backlash of after Shazam came out. And now there's this video that he posts about announcing that they're making a live action Moana. He's reprising the role of Maui in live action. He's executive producing it with his $7 production company. The girl who voiced Moana is an executive producer. Alani Alawi Kavani, I think, or I can't remember her first name, but she but just the video is so weird. Like I can appreciate and respect like it meaning a lot to him, like in terms of the culture, the character, any of that stuff, because he talks about his family, his father, his grandfather, all this stuff. It's fine, but it's just like, first off, it just feels really weird to me that a movie that's 7 years old, like an animated film that's 7 years old, is, that's where I guess Disney is at in terms of what they're looking at in terms of live action stuff. And just on so many levels, it feels so weird to me. The Rock stuff, that whole him and $7 and like what he's like the guy for now because of DC not working. And it's like presumably I don't know if they're doing more Jumanji movies. I don't know if they're going to do another Jungle Cruise movie. Even though that stuff is floating in the air, it's like, what's the next big Rock thing? And it's like, oh well, this is one of the big things that's on the burner now. And it just left me with such a weird negative feeling, even more so about him and Moana, because I love Moana. Like I love that movie so much. And it just feels so recent that it's like it's still so, it hasn't even really earned that, I don't think.
I feel like that's a symptom of our time, and I'm not saying you're not right. I'm saying I'm sort of so not shocked that they're doing that, but at the same time, I do completely agree that like that's a breakdown of a certain kind of rule we have in our heads about like what those live action remakes mean. It's like taking something that was applicable to a different audience and trying to make it feel more. I mean, whether you agree with the practice or not, you can understand the idea of what if we took those stories that people loved and just made them into modern versions of those stories that people today can love. It's like this is one that people still are watching. Parents with like Blu-ray players in their cars are still playing this one. Like this is not one that's had time to get stale yet with kids, so it just seems like an odd enterprise. But the Rock part is the other little twist that just makes it like, when you say the pivot, I had not put that thought on it, but that is exactly what it is that feels funny about it. Is it like this is exactly the kind of hype video he was making a few months ago about Black Adam changing the world, and now that's completely blown up in his face, he's just moved on to this other thing, which good. He can go from strength to strength or whatever works for a guy like that. It's obviously he's a very successful guy, but that tied into it does make it seem like, okay, it does also have then the smack of a vanity project on top of being a little bit of a do we really need this movie right now? And also maybe there's a little confusion. Maybe this is what you were alluding to, Steve. Is there's a little confusion on Disney's part about like what are its surefire that Disney for whatever reason wants to release movies that make $1 billion. I don't mean for whatever reason, we all understand money. I'm just saying for some reason for some reason they're stuck on these franchises being that way though. So it's like they're really looking for what's the best, what's going to grab people the most, what do we know is working for people. And right now I do think there's a little bit of a confusion over there about like where to go with Disney stuff, where to go with Star Wars stuff, where to go with Marvel stuff. It's all sort of, you hear announcements all the time now that sound like there's a shifting slate and there's a lot of attempt to sort of rely on surefire projects.
Yeah. I don't, and the weird part about that is you two are absolutely right. But what we're finding is there's no formula to it. Sometimes it's really luck. And I think that they believe that they have it down to an algorithm, just because
Right.
they have they may have an extraordinary amount of streams from Moana. So they're like, look, Moana, okay. And there's a cross intersection. We also have some Pacific Islander content. There's a cross section. How old are those people? Those
Right.
people are 14 to whatever.
It's the cultural piece that makes Disney feel good or look good or whatever.
100%, man. And the problem is culture is not as predictable as they believe it is. And that's still the part of like, that's the weird part. Like AI and all that stuff. People talk about that stuff, but movies are still flopping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
if it were that smart yet, then there would be a formula. They'd be like, this sector of the population, that doesn't exist yet. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Finish what you were saying because I was going to move on to a different movie and a tangent from what you just said.
Oh no, I was just going to say that it just doesn't work. Like so, even and what you the listeners have to understand is we are very big Disney fans, but at the same time, there's something happening. There's some panic in the house, and you can feel it. It's very palatable.
Right, we're nerds for movie magic, and right now, and for as long as we can remember, Disney has had their stuff all mixed up with movie magic for people of a certain age, I guess. I was just going to say that, like, talking about these movies flopping, I think it's really interesting. You kind of brought this up, Steve, but it's very interesting. Shazam, at the day this podcast comes out, Shazam is now streaming, and it just hit theaters a few weeks ago.
Right.
And it's like made, I don't know what it made on a $220 million budget, and we don't like to overemphasize budget versus gross as like that's the mark of a movie being good. Right. But we know that like this very thing we're talking about, these studios having these investments that they feel good about, and these franchises that they feel like they can make plans for and pump in energy into because they think it's going to work, and there's nothing that makes Marvel or any other franchise more immune from that. But I don't know. I think it's interesting to note that like what's happened with Shazam is like, it may be a just an okay movie in a lot of ways, but it's not that bad. I mean, in my opinion, it's not bad enough to be like the one in the similar way that like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania like became the flashpoint of like, is Marvel losing their touch? And it's like, well, that's a good question to be asking. It's a little unfair that this is the movie that happens to be the flashpoint of that 100%. When they put out much more mediocre content than that. But I think that like that question of what you're saying, Ronald, is what's a sure thing now? What does a sure thing look like to these studios in 2023? None of them really know anymore.
Yeah. Can I express something to you guys that I've been thinking about based on this?
I'm done listening to you express.
Okay,
one more.
I need to call upon the power of a studio that I've expressed that I love that like crazy. A24.
Oh yeah. We got to do an episode about A24.
Here's my fear. They kind of walked away with everything. And I don't want them to get into like the business of just trying to win things, You don't
want them to become Miramax, where it's like now it's about the Oscar potential.
Yeah. I'm a little afraid of that because they are whoever.
But look at the movie they won all those awards with. Yeah, there couldn't be a weirder movie. There couldn't be. Sure. If you're a fan of cinema and weirdness in movies, you couldn't be happier with that sweep because that's a, you know what I mean? That's a one of a kind movie. But I know what you're saying, Ronald. It's like, is A24 going to be the sort of stodgy imprint in 5 years, 10 years? Because they're going to start to crave that because they didn't seem to be about the Oscars before. I mean, maybe they were the directors they worked with and the projects but and you've been the one leading the charge in terms of like wanting to wear merch and stuff. But like, Steve and I have always we've on Thread we've always said we should at some point do an episode where we like talk about all the A24 movies because they put out such an interesting batch of movies. And, to repeat myself, they have worked with some great directors and creators. And now that it's like, they'd be even more of a draw for any production because it's like, this huge win with this, you might say Everything Everywhere All at Once is an unlikely win, but it also hits a lot of the targets of an Oscar film. But,
for sure.
What do you think, Steve? What do you think is a sure thing right now? Like, which of these franchises do you think has the best lock on audiences. I instantly have one that came to my mind, and it's not even one I like that much.
Wait, I'm sorry, I missed. So you mean like just
which,
like of the
which
IP?
franchise do you think is the surest bet right now? Which one do you think is this? I mean, there's one that's the obvious answer. If you're talking about money,
You talking about family?
I'm talking about Avatar. I mean, for whatever
Oh, I
reason,
thought you were.
Avatar is like a license to print money.
How though? How?
I mean, yes, but it's also like averages out to be not as like yes, it is a license to print
Yeah,
money. You're right. It's hugely successful, but I think it's still Marvel. You know,
yeah,
even though Marvel's at a moment where it's like things could be a little different this time next year, I think even still, for the scale that they have put out stuff, you know, they definitely have hit a weird point. But I think there's still they're still probably like one
There's still good investment if in
on a
terms
chart
of
for me. Yeah,
like,
because I think going forward, there's still like the reality that these movies could be automatic like 500 million worldwide movies,
yeah,
and the frequency at which they do that kind of like it supersedes something like Avatar coming out every 3 years or
right.
2 years, or averaging two movies over the past 18, 17, whatever it's been, 14 years. um
I mean,
but I
I
don't know.
want to say Marvel more than Avatar because I like those movies more.
Yeah,
But I do think that like you're probably right that like with Marvel, what it's going to take is some huge move though that I don't really want to see of like Chris Evans is coming back
yeah,
or Robert Downey Jr. is coming back. Like that's going to be the way that they get to the guaranteed,
yeah.
get people's interest back. Or I don't know what it's going to be, but right now, especially with what's happening around Jonathan Majors, it's hard to know about what Marvel's plans are
oh
really
my
going to
god,
be.
man.
Yeah, I mean, it's as I say, like this next year is going to be a really interesting time. I mean, because you'll have
Yeah,
a couple movies in the Marvel system, and even the DC system, and I mean some other IP that's coming out, franchise IP, to see how well they continue to hold up theatrically.
yeah,
But I think on a bet, I would probably still take Marvel, um, because I think it's still there. If anything, if it all is coming down, it comes down in perspective. I think on average, and I think it's still at the top of it. It's still probably Marvel looking down
Mhm.
at
hundred
everybody
percent.
below it. But I mean, honestly, one of the movies, like when Ronald talks about Super Mario, I actually think that might be one of the biggest things to come out in the next 5 years, depending how this movie does. It could be the biggest movie of the year. And if it is, that's a franchise that Illumination has now, in
Yeah,
addition to Despicable Me. And they basically have taken over the animation space in the past 3 years from Pixar, and at least box office wise. And that's something that I would say bet on that, because the family movies still are overperforming. And, that's it'll be interesting to see. I mean, already they're forecasting it to overperform like crazy. But I don't know. Yeah, it'll be interesting, and I think, man, yeah, it's a weird read, because I feel like Galaxy of the Guardians of the Galaxy 3, it'll be a little bit of an exception, because I feel like it probably, if it underperforms, then there's definitely a big problem.
I was going to say
Yeah,
that like
that's
that's
the
the one we
big
should
tell.
watch as far as like if because this is one that people who don't like Marvel movies on average might still like. Like I know several
Right.
people that have said, "I'm gonna watch that and then I'm out. If it's not good, I'm out." Or people
For
say
sure.
dramatic shit,
yeah,
but
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but
like the idea of like I've been following this and I've been making sure to
yeah,
watch everything, and at some point I'm going to tap out if it's not grabbing me.
yeah,
And I think when people view those movies as singular and unique and outside a little bit of that, whatever it is you might be getting sick of about the superhero era of movies that we've been
right.
in, the Guardians movies are the outliers of that. They provide
Yeah.
something separate. So
yeah.
Uh,
Interesting stuff, man.
so yeah, we shall see. Wait, that's like barely a month away.
yeah, I
What,
know.
a
Can't
little over
wait.
a month away, a little under a month away, right? Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm convinced that it's at least going to hit me in the feels, but I'm hoping that it has that James Gunn quality of like just being a fun ride where I'm like kind of grinning at the screen the whole time. He's done that to me
Yeah,
a couple times now. So
Yeah, I think it's gonna. I think it's. Yeah, I think they definitely have something with it. And again, like early stuff is very positive, and like you look at like when they're doing the premiere, and like when like they let reviews come out about movies and things, like that's always a tell.
yeah, right,
So
right.
I think they're talking like a couple weeks out that these reviews are probably going to be breaking. So that's usually a pretty big vote of confidence for the reviews at least. But
the marketing sure is focusing on Rocket. It's making me worried about my little
I think it's
yeah.
pretty...
Well, but here's the thing though, wouldn't the ultimate bait and switch be that it's not him, like that someone else?
Sure. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be him.
Yeah,
no, I think
giving him a happy ending is kind of like the message of the trilogy almost. But
Yeah.
it also could be that him embracing his heroic status. You know what I mean? That could be like the sacrifice and the surviving. They both fit whatever arc we've been watching for this character. But I feel like James Gunn and probably Marvel want to keep the IP around. that's my thought.
Yeah,
is it's like, don't kill our IP. But anyway, no, you're right. In a few weeks we'll get to see it. So
cool.
Well, Ronald,
yeah,
talk about your movie. You picked for us to watch.
Pathaan. I've heard amazing things about it. Amazon is kind of, I think they're kind of going all in on the Indian films, because I see that they have like another big action film, and this is one that I had heard about in the extended edition. I don't know if you guys watched that extended edition of this. A very cool action-packed movie called Pathaan. I'm not familiar with any of the actors, and to save myself from butchering the names, I'll just say that I was excited to get you guys to watch, especially off the heels of RRR and how positively. I mean, this isn't. I'm not talking to two narrow-minded guys. I mean, you guys are pretty open about watching stuff, which I'm always happy about. So, what'd you think of the movie? What'd you think of Pathaan?
I mean, it's really fun. I mean, it's like a big action, crazy. I lack the perspective on how big these stars are.
Yeah,
because everything I read and watched about the movie, like like when I watch something, like I like look on YouTube for like behind the scenes stuff, and
right,
and like local or global press that they do for it, just to learn more about like how it was made and who this guy is and who. Like, first off, that guy is like 57 years old. Like,
I know. Like
that blew my mind.
The main guy who plays Pathaan.
He looks incredible.
Yeah, Shah Rukh Khan. Like, he's like a legend. And like
Steve,
I don't
tell
know
me if this is what happened with you. I looked him up, and I started finding pictures of this old guy. And I was like, but where's the young, hot guy who was the star of this brand new movie? And then I finally realized it's like, no, that's him. These are just pictures of him, like, like a little bit like more conservative hair or whatever.
Just living his day-to-day life, not being an action star.
But realizing, he's a big star, and also realizing there's callbacks to characters. There's one character who comes in who uses has a unique weapon, I guess I'll say. That I found out from a little digging around is like a hero from these other movies in the series, Tiger, who and again, it does feel like this. I mean, it's funny, Ronald, you're talking about this as like international cinema, but this is like international cinema, or Indian cinema, I should say. It's not international, it's Indian, but like it's like reaching towards the MCU. It's like this studio is making these spy movies, and they're referring to it, like even at the beginning of the movie, it says the name of the studio, Spyverse. I forget the name of the studio.
Wow.
But do you know it off the top of your head? Is it's the YRF Spy Universe, which I think is from, based on the studio name, Yash Raj Films. And it says Spyverse, like it shows the Yash Raj Films logo, and then it turns to the side and says Spyverse, So they're definitely doing that. And they even have mid-credit scenes that do the sort of thing of connecting these movies and joking around and stuff. So, I mean, clearly they're trying to do that. So it's really interesting to see, like, East meets West, I guess, in this thing. Like, what's funny is what I kept picturing was, yes, RRR was on my mind.
Yeah.
But also, I was picturing, this is going to sound funny, like if Mission Impossible were not concerned with the Tom Cruise phenomenon of like stunts and real environments and real daredevil tactics, if it was just about trying to put together the craziest action sequences, and it kind of has a little bit of that Fast and the Furious thing too, of like, let's do a cartoonish version of reality for these action sequences. But I kept thinking of MacGruber.
I mean, it's not far off.
That's a good one.
Because it's so straight-faced. It just needed, all it needed was one tweak further into seriousness, and it would have been a total satire of these like macho characters, but there is some humor, and there is I don't know, there's such an interesting mix of things going on. Steve, when you said fun, I mean, honestly, that's the way I felt watching this movie. It's just it kept entertaining. Every time I thought, okay, this movie's sort of corny or cheesy or too silly, there'd just be some moment of like it would just move forward, and also finding a place to pause a movie. You ever do this where you're like, I'm going to pause this movie when it gets to the end of this sequence.
Yeah.
And then you're like, 15 minutes later, you're like, well, please, God damn it, get to the end of a sequence. It goes from one thing into the next. And I do think that's kind of a style of filmmaking that is exhilarating on a certain level. And you can't help but be sort of swept away by it. Like Nikki came in and watched the last half of it with me. And she started off saying, could you catch me up on this movie? And I was like, no. And then she watched a little bit of it and she said, this is so over the top. And then she said that every 15 minutes as she watched the next, hour. So it has a hypnotic power. Had you seen it before, Ronald? Before you watched it this time?
No. Okay. I mean, you're telling me about the Spyverse. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 movies in the Spyverse already.
Yeah.
Another one's coming out. Tiger 3 is coming out in November. Now I have to go back and watch it. Now it's to get some perspective on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they definitely end this movie with that note of, now the characters are talking about a greater threat and they've got to start teaming up, and that's where you said, Steve, not knowing the star power of some of these people or the importance of some of these characters. It's like they could have shown the Avengers of this series to me and I wouldn't have known I was seeing
I was thinking the same thing. I felt so like unprepared.
And
then when I was reading about it and watching things about it, there was one video I watched where and it speaks to like the thing that John mentioned, like where it connects to other movies or the weapon that he referenced. But they were like showing like footage in a theater, with an Indian audience watching this movie, and that's exactly what it was. Like these audience were going nuts for that stuff, like we would during an Avengers movie.
Okay,
now I'm watching it like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. Like, I like it. That's cool. That's fun. It's like this is not like a great movie to me, but it's fun. But that audience that like it all means everything, and they just were going batshit for this movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, respect, man, because like you're hitting something because the audience is going nuts for it. And I mean, this is a pretty the movie, it's a pretty popular film, like you had said.
Yeah.
Steve, did you see John Wick 4 with a crowd, or did you see it in a pretty empty theater?
There was a decent amount of people in my theater. I went to a matinee, but it was at least half full.
I was just because the reason I brought that up is you just made me think about this fact, Ronald. At our screening of John Wick 4, which was a packed house, when Donnie Yen showed up on screen, you felt the crowd go, oh,
yes,
like here he is. It's kind of what you're talking about, Steve. It's that physical reaction to star power that you sometimes have if you're watching a movie.
Yeah.
And it's like they've arrived, and that is something that is a context we're missing with this movie, is how much it feels like the height of a certain kind of cinema, because to us it does have that, for lack of a better term, because there's not it's like it's got a slightly exotic feel to it, because we're like also just vibing on after watching RRR, to your point, Ronald. I like this crazy Indian cinema where it's like it breaks so many weird rules of mine of like, is this like, I can't tell if this is the corniest emotion I've ever seen expressed in a movie, but it's so clean and clear, and it's so like inventively shot, and the camera just never stops doing stuff, and it's like, it makes me think, oh, there's a lot of really lazy movies being made today. And this is not one of them.
Pathaan emphasizes his arch enemy, Jim, how much he wants him to speak Hindi. And I think that's so cool. And he's like, whatever it is that you are, you're not what you used to be. Speak Hindi. Speak Hindi. It's so cool, man.
Jim's theme was banging. Did you notice that? Like every time Jim came in, and it had like motorcycle sounds revving up, like mixed in with the music. That was awesome.
Yeah, everything about it just feels like that extra. Everything is so extra.
It's almost like a 10-year-old was the person who came up with, it's like, and then he jumps through the glass and he hits him in the face with his feet, and then he lands on the ground and he picks up the gun that the guy throws out in the air and shoots 5 other guys.
This movie's a big fan of gotcha. You've come into this room. You think it's one thing. Oh, there are soldiers in the back. You're an idiot. You shouldn't have come here. It's like a lot of that. It's like a lot of booby traps that happen in this film.
Well, something I've noticed, but between this and RRR, and I don't know if it's like maybe an Indian cinema style of like acting and monologuing that's a little bit different than the kind of quippy, bantery stuff that we do in the States, where it's like you would have a villain and a hero talking to each other and going back and forth in a bantery way, and it might feel kind of the corniness there would be in the little jokes and the little conversation. You'd be like, oh, that's how they. But like I noticed in this movie and in RR, there's these scenes where people just kind of will say, instead of like a back and forth where you learn this, the villain comes up to the hero and says, "I'm like a lone wolf waiting in the grass, but when I strike, I kill. And I will kill you if you don't do what I say. So what are you going to do?" It's like, but it comes out like in a monologue rather than a back and forth. And I just thinking like that is a little bit of a dramatic style, but it made some scenes kind of like, especially Jim when he shows up and he just gives him this little monologue while the guy's hanging upside down in a car. It's the car leaking gasoline that's going to catch fire situation, but he's just kind of talking to him. But he basically just lays out like exactly what the screenwriter wants you to know about this character. Oh, I'm a lone wolf and I'm very dangerous, but I would love to work with you. You know, it's just so on the nose. But I do think it helps you understand, like every time you think, oh, I don't know what's going on here, there's usually some dialogue that makes it clear. And it in that way, it's very much like one of those Western action movies you watch where you barely understand what's going on while you're watching it.
For sure. To speak to the dialogue, man, there's a scene where the woman that basically hired Pathaan is trying to tell his backstory, and she just randomly says, yeah, he a very big part of the organization. Yeah, he was our forward center. He was a soccer. It was a soccer position, a football position,
right?
Was there supposed to be more dialogue after that? And she just said it like he was supposed to be like, "Oh yeah." Because even if somebody said in American football, like, "Oh, he's our quarterback," I still would be like, why are you just dropping this on me in the middle of a conversation?
Well, no, it is a little bit like when it's like the analogy is supposed to help me understand. Like, well, he's our hot shot. Oh, what do you mean by that? Oh, he's our quarterback. But what do you mean by that? Oh, he's our rock star. It's like, yeah, but I'm I'm trying to get at something here.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun movie for sure, man. I'm glad you guys watched it. Who's next? Who's next?
I think Steve is next in the rotation.
Steve.
Yeah. I think I'm going to pick a movie that is on Netflix currently, and this is something that is one of these things where Netflix buys a movie that's been out for 3 or 4 years, and no one knows the movie exists, and then all of a sudden it's the #1 movie on Netflix.
I hate that. I love it, but I hate it.
So this is a 2019. I'm going off categories when I crime, horror, thriller, mystery. If any of that sounds good, come along for the ride.
Yeah.
This is called I See You, and this is a film starring. I guess the biggest name would probably be Helen Hunt is in this movie.
Okay.
John Tenney's in this movie. Owen Teague is in this movie, who most people probably know from the It movies. He was one of the like what's his name in the movie, the one that dies in the tunnels, one of Henry's like henchmen. He was also in Bloodline. He's Ben Mendelsohn's son in Bloodline. But yeah, this is like a movie. I'll read you the log line. A policeman and his doctor wife have some marriage problems, and the son blames the mother for his job. The policeman investigates a case of a missing boy. The possible kidnapping looks like some cases from a few years ago. What a horrible synopsis.
I've been seeing trailers for this pop up recently, and I don't know. You know what? Maybe it was in it's recommended to watch maybe I've watched something on Netflix and it's shown me that trailer at the end of something I've watched.
Yeah, Netflix's synopsis is a little cleaner. It's as he searches for a missing child, a small town detective uncovers a malicious presence lurking in the crevices of his family's already broken home.
Oh,
pretty good.
Here's an even simpler one, Steve. Strange occurrences plague a small town detective and his family as he investigates the disappearance of a 12-year-old boy.
I love them all.
Yeah.
Either way,
we're gonna watch it.
Thriller. Trailer's pretty good.
Yeah.
If you watch the trailer,
I agree. The trailer looked creepy. I remember
the same thing.
Why didn't I watch that? Like, yeah, awesome.
And I had read a couple articles about like this phenomenon about the Netflix, movie that no one ever knew, or a movie that's 10 years old. It's like the biggest movie in the world on Netflix. And this movie experienced that for like a week or two, really, the past couple of weeks. And I think Murder Mystery 2 coming out, and like some other original movie came out, and it's kind of down on the top 10 charts now. But uh I meant to watch it before, so this is a good reason. And I assume none of us had heard of this movie, so I'd like us all to check it out. Again, it's on Netflix. It's called I See You.
Okay.
With Helen Hunt. It's got a pretty cool poster. Trailer's really good, so we'll do that for the next episode of the pod.
I See You.
I See You. And so moving along.
It's not about the intensive care unit.
Speaking of something that someone saw. Ronald, talk to us. Talk to us about the Mario Brothers. Super Mario Brothers.
Super Mario Brothers is a adaptation of a very popular series that started in the 80s. I'll make no I won't hide it, man. I'm a huge Nintendo fan. So, everything from the Game Boy to now the Switch. I got my wife addicted to the Switch during lockdown. My wife.
Thanks, John.
Sure. Sorry.
I
didn't mean to take it from you, but you were a little far from the mic.
No, you're backing me up, baby. I like it.
Just bought the Mario. I said Mario or Mario. Do you say Mario? I say Mario.
I say Mario.
Yeah, I say Mario. Just bought the package of all the Sunshine Marios, and I'm a fan. So when this movie came with Chris Pratt as Mario and Bowser played by Jack Black, I mean, I was there, but then I heard Chris Pratt's voice. I was a little scared, and the internet also was a little scared as well. And then I watched the movie, and I have to tell you guys that Chris Pratt is not the problem with this movie. Let me tell you first what it feels like to watch this film for real, like on a real level. If you have any experience with Mario, it is really a treat. Like it is a visual masterpiece in a lot of ways. Like the amount of
if only studios listened to this podcast, they would pull that quote that you just said, and it would be on every poster.
Oh God.
Every ad. A visual masterpiece.
It's a visual masterpiece.
There it is, guys. You're welcome.
It is a Easter egg extravaganza, which might be the problem with it, man. It might be the best thing and the worst thing about it. What this thing is very thin on is story. And sure, like the story.
I mean, I'm not trying to be a dick, but like I'm not surprised that a movie based on that game would be thin on story. I mean, I know that there's stories to tell. I'm just saying that. Like,
right.
It seems like if you were staying true to the thing at all, it could giving it too much of a story is almost like too silly. I don't know, but I don't know.
Herein lies the issue. Things that have parodied or paid homage to cultural, toys and things like that have existed in this world and been good. I'm going to give you the Lego movie, Lego Batman, even the Teen Titans movie that the writers came from, which is even stranger. So this is not, they exist in the world already, good versions of them. So I thought that it would be kind of, along those lines. And it has
the chance to be that to somehow serve the brand and also sit outside that and not be just a commercial.
Yeah, for sure. This was a small audience. It was press only. And really, it was about, in the end, 15 people there. And only about 5 of them really laughed throughout the movie. It really wasn't a particularly funny movie. And this is the thing, like, please understand that I watch a ton of kids movies and I laugh at a bunch of kids movies. So it's the standard of what I'll laugh at is pretty low. And this kind of fell flat. But here's the thing. It's still, with all that, still is one of the better experiences I've had watching an animated film, because the combination of the Mario Brothers, Princess Peach, and the incredible, I mean, you've probably heard this a million times, the incredible voice acting of Jack Black in this film is like unreal. He elevates the material. You could tell that he may have even felt like this is flat. And he's like, I'm not going to be the weak part of this film, you know? So you really hear it. He's going for it. Keegan-Michael Key's really good as well.
Jack Black didn't really try, said no one ever.
Right.
Like that's how he approaches anything he's ever done.
Yeah.
Talk show appearances, everything. He's always gives it 110 for sure.
Yeah. So, Anya Taylor-Joy, very good as Princess Peach, but she didn't have a lot to really dig in. You know, I think that could have been a version of this that could have been even light on story, but focused a little more. It didn't feel like it was really going anywhere. It's a short hour 30, like, so it doesn't feel like it's tight. Like it, the action begins right when the film starts. So
Ronald, are you saying it's a meh?
It's a meh, but I left out feeling like I'm probably gonna watch this 10 more times. Is that weird to say?
No, not at all, especially with a small child in your life.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like, it sounds like, and everything I've heard and read, and I'm going to go see it this weekend, taking Sydney to see it with Aaron. And like, it seems like they've definitely dialed into two things. It sounds like it's very much really geared towards the young kids.
Yes.
Like that may not even know what Mario is.
Yeah.
Like that's creating the audience. But then the stuff that you're responding to is really a lot of the nostalgia, the Easter eggs,
Steve,
like the built-in.
It's insider baseball,
right?
Almost to the point where it doesn't explain things. Like things are happening on the screen, and they are not explaining it. So, like the Mario Kart thing happens, and they're just like,
it just
here it is. Yeah, and I think what's been really interesting is things like Lego Batman that kind of take tropes and things that you should know and really explain them in a way that's, you know, he's like, this is my dumb, you know, Batwing or something like that.
What about the Wreck-It Ralph movies? Does it feel like it's in those footsteps at all? Because those movies feel like they're doing a similar thing in a way, you know.
Yeah. Yes.
Especially the first one with the racing and the kind of candy.
But not as good.
Right. Well, it seems like Wreck-It Ralph is like more of like there's an actual story and plot more to it.
No, true.
Where this is really kind of coasting on like the name and the IP and the characters and
man,
you know, the voice casting and all that stuff.
It puts a lot in front of you that they do not explain on any level. And the thing is, like, maybe I don't know if that works for Mario. I don't know if this movie is a missed opportunity, because two things. This movie, a good version of this would, I'm not even saying this in any, like, it could make $1 billion if it were a good version. So here's what's going to happen. First week, everybody's going to see this movie. And then a friend is going to be like, man, I was a little afraid to watch it. Nah, I probably would wait until it comes out on, you know, VOD or Netflix or whatever people imagine that this thing's going to come on eventually. But second week is going to have a pretty dramatic dip in viewership. And I think that has a lot to do with, like, it doesn't have the staying power because the film's not good enough to earn. Like, if this were a good movie, it'd make a ton. It's going to make a ton this weekend, but the dip is going to be crazy.
I think we should watch this because I'm going to bet the opposite.
You think it's going to be man?
Yeah.
I don't think this movie's.
I don't think this is a quality issue. I think it's like a movie like this is not a critic-driven movie.
You think?
I feel like if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, it's got a 96% audience score, and it's got an A cinema score, and there's nothing that comes out next week or the week after that would even touch the audience of this movie. This is a 4-quadrant movie.
Dip.
And so you're saying over 60?
No.
Over 50.
Jesus, man, that's a lot. That's a big dip.
Well, I mean, some of these movies recently have been dropping 70 to 80. Like, so
I'm gonna say
wants
30.
some toppings on that ice cream.
I'm not gonna say that much. I don't think it's that much.
Because if
of
it's
a
not
failure.
over 50, if you're talking not over 50, then that's incredible. Like that's
No.
great if it's below 50.
So I'm gonna say 40, 45. I'm not gonna say 50.
Then you're saying it's not dropping that bad at all. Then.
But this movie should be one of those movies that does better as it goes along. I think it's that much of a missed opportunity.
Okay.
You think it's gonna? Oh my god!
I haven't seen it, but I'm just saying, like, without even talking about the quality of the movie.
Yeah,
I'm just saying the metrics that it's hit already. You know, like the audience score, the cinema score, usually equates to word of mouth, and even what you're describing, even being like kind of mid on this movie, it's like that's enough for this movie to make a ton of money. Like you're talking like the Minions sequel made almost $1 billion, and that movie was horrible.
Yeah,
like horrible.
But so hold on, if you're saying
an audience that hasn't had a movie in a while,
if Minions 2 is the standard, that's going to make $1 billion.
Okay, I mean, it could. But I mean, we're also
I'm just
talking
saying
about like it. It is also a thing where what's the other family type movie of this? Might be even in the same neighborhood. Shazam did not take off as a family movie, and it's going to be watchable at home the same same time this movie's out. So I do think that like what are the other movies vying for this movie's audience? There really isn't anything else. There's nothing new and big.
And I want to say something for the fans that might be like, oh man, like what about Chris Pratt's voice? They do a very good job of explaining why Mario and Luigi's voices sound the way they do. It has nothing to do with Chris Pratt. I don't think it was Chris Pratt that was like, I'm gonna sound like myself.
Oh no, I think when he got cast, everyone said, "Why is he getting cast?"
Yeah,
and then they announced, "Well, he's not going to be doing an Italian accent."
Yeah,
and then everyone was like, "Well, what's going on then?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
they explain all of that stuff in a really cool way. You don't want Chris Pratt
to do an Italian accent, but also, why are we doing a Mario that's not Italian? But then I also thought, isn't the Mario accent kind of something that people are moving away from?
They did something worse
in terms of cartoon voices. It seems like people aren't doing that, Italian voice as much as they were before. So
this won't give it away.
All right. Well, you're not going to spoil.
But this is just. But this is what it is. It's not an Italian accent. It's a New York accent. That's what everybody has.
Right.
It's hey, forget about it. Hey, get the fuck out. I mean, I don't know why I said get the fuck out of
the fuck out of here.
I'm walking here.
But everybody has that accent, which is very
so great if they were dropping F-bombs. If you were like, oh, I should have mentioned this. I buried the lead.
But I mean, like in Mario's world, like in like once he goes through the pipe, I mean, like literally, there are people that have never been to the stage are like, I'm walking here. Get the fuck out of here. It's like, what? Yeah. This was a choice, man. It's like, but as a kid, if I watched this shit, I would shit my pants. This would be the best movie I ever saw in my life.
That's my point.
So I can't.
And honestly, like looking ahead, like John just said, and we were talking about before, it's like the next competition really possibly for this is Guardians.
Steve, you're bringing me around.
And Little Mermaid. Like, and that's a month away.
I will say this, man. Like, I did leave out. Sure, I was disappointed because it was a missed opportunity. It could have been an incredible film, but like, I still left out feeling like I saw the Super Mario Brothers movie with John Leguizamo, and the fuck was I looking at? I mean, like, I don't know what that was.
Even then, as an 11 or 12-year-old, we knew like this is not right.
This isn't.
But an 11 or 12-year-old,
that is a weird movie. I mean, that's like such a strange movie.
Strange.
Yeah, no,
it's a victory. So if
that was a different era of adapting things. You know what I mean?
Man. Yeah. So I'd say go ahead, man. Go see it. The more I talk to you guys about it, the more positive I am about it. But it's a missed opportunity to have something that could have doubled the money. But maybe the amount of like what you're talking about, the simplicity of it, and then the voice acting is really good, and people are gonna like Bowser more than they like Mario and Luigi. That's the issue with this movie, and I don't know if it should have been like that.
Right?
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you watch a movie like. Better voice act. Oh shit! This makes me think about something. Maybe if we had a different set of voice actors, or maybe one was replaced, that I'd feel like I like these people more than I like the villain in the movie. Because I was like, where's Bowser at? I haven't seen him in a couple of scenes. Where the fuck is Bowser? Where's Bowser? I need to see Bowser. That felt weird. I shouldn't have felt like that. That's why I felt strange about this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see how it plays out.
But you started off saying Chris Pratt wasn't the problem with this movie, and
he's not
saying he's
this is a therapy session, John. We've gotten him to the point.
He is the problem.
No, I love the growth. I love the growth.
Yeah,
I mean, everything I've seen and heard is that like it's fun. It looks, it's kind of thin,
yes.
but like pretty consistently, people have like a lot of reviews have been like the voice cast is pretty miscast.
Yeah.
With the exception of Jack Black, and I think even there's a couple other names that they were saying that were fine, but like the core, like mainly they were talking about Chris Pratt and Charlie Day, like kind of being miscast.
I think they should have maybe done it the other way around.
Like flipped it.
Yeah.
Right.
I kind of like a panicky Mario. You know, what's
going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, the Super Mario Brothers movie is in theaters by the time you're listening to this. And as a reminder, so is Air. We all loved Air, and definitely one of the two. There's some good choices in theaters this weekend if you want to go check out, something that might interest you. There's John Wick 4 is in there. Dungeons and Dragons. Segue real quick into our last section.
Yeah.
I texted you guys last week. I went and saw Dungeons and Dragons.
I saw it too.
And I love that movie so much. It's something I want to rewatch again. And I want, it's just like a great adventure, super entertaining. Kind of made me feel like Princess Vibe minus like the romance like vibes. Just like in terms of like, the Princess Bride, just in terms of like that road trip with the different characters that you're kind of along for the ride with.
It's
great. It's great.
Likable characters, good performances, jokes that are fun and funny, a story that's interesting enough, a pace that moves at a nice clip, a world that's like interesting for how it combines all those fantasy elements without overdoing any kind of explanation. Like I remember that attempt, was it World of Warcraft that got the big movie? Like that was an attempt to jumpstart a similar kind of mythology that's already existing somewhere in a format that people are familiar with, that I felt like it just didn't really have as much fun, tell as much of a story, or make me understand why people love this world,
Sure.
But with this Dungeons and Dragons movie, and I know that it's probably only vaguely tangentially related to when people get together to play the role-playing game, but there is a certain like world of those games that you felt this movie dipping into, but it didn't hit you over the head with the feeling like you were supposed to know a bunch of stuff before you watched this movie. And I also thought it was kind of interesting that, did you catch this at all, Steve? Was this just my imagination that they did play it so that you got to feel like at key points there was a sort of like it was the equivalent of a roll of the dice. It was somebody throwing a thing and hoping they hit the right thing. It was somebody trying a spell and seeing if it worked. It wasn't overdone with like relating to the game, but I did feel like, oh, this movie does hinge on these moments of a character tries something, or they try a gambit and it this might not work, and then it works. But otherwise, it's really just a fantasy story with jokes. You know what I mean? It's like great. It doesn't really have anything to do with your preconceived notions of Dungeons and Dragons, and so I think the barrier for entry is extremely low with getting into this thing. And not to overuse the word fun in this episode, but I sort of was really carried along by this, and I think Chris Pine is just in that sweet spot of an actor who seems to be able to kind of do a lot of different variations on what he does, and this is a great use of Chris Pine, I thought.
And he's making the case that he may be the best Chris, I think. I mean, you talked about Pratt a moment ago, but I think
you're right.
But
batting average, Chris Pine
love Pine. The cast is great all around. And
who's the kid who plays the sorcerer? He was great.
Justice Smith.
And the girl who's the shapeshifter.
Sophia Lillis or Lilis.
She was great as well.
Yeah, the cast is great, and I love another thing I loved about it. Just the use of practical effects and in camera stunts and things like that,
sets and puppets and masks.
All that
things.
stuff was awesome, and the filmmakers have been posting tons of stuff on their again, behind the scenes stuff I love watching, like just on like their Twitter feeds and stuff on YouTube, like making of things. Just the way they accomplish stuff is just awesome. But yeah,
I mean,
man,
it's the game
and
night team. If people
also
don't know that,
Hugh Grant is great in it too.
And if people
Who's
don't know, it's the game night team. And if you're wondering, like, if you like game night and you're wondering what they're doing making this type of movie, it's like they definitely bring over the cleverness and the warmth and the humor of, you know what I mean? There's just a quality level of this that's like it's got an intelligence to it that is fun. And you were mentioning Hugh Grant, like this is another good,
great
sort of comic turn for him.
He's fun. But yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised. No experience or very minimal when I was younger with Dungeons and Dragons, and I think that it's one of it's like a nice mix of like enough there that I think it will kind of please and delight and satisfy people that are fans of that game, but like you said, open enough that if you have no understanding of it at all, like this is just a really great ride of a movie in theaters. And again, this is another thing that overperforms. Got an A cinema score, very high critic and audience score. So there's a lot of really great movies in theaters right now. So no matter what you're looking for, you can find some good movies right now. So we just mentioned 3 or 4 of them that are just like they're ready for you to go check out. So
yeah.
What else have you guys watched? Anything like TV? Anything like you want to mention before we head out of here?
I would like to maybe next time let's talk about some streaming series. Let's talk about some Ted Lasso and some Yellow Jackets and some Mandalorian or something like that. But right now, I wouldn't want to get on too much.
Yeah, so catch up on that if you want to watch along. If we kind of catch up next week on some of those series. Yeah, I didn't really watch much else with this week. I started watching that Rob Lowe series on Netflix that he did with his son called Unstable.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty fun. Pretty funny. It just seems like he's like playing the character that he was in Parks and Rec, like in a like a series where he's like kind of like this genius tech guru, who's kind of like stuck in his life after he experienced
literally stuck.
Yeah, this traumatic event, losing someone in his family is like,
oh wow,
the team around him trying to kind of like help him along to get back to his like genius level stuff because he's trying to save his company. But Aaron had really wanted to watch it, and it was pretty cute, pretty fun, and I like Rob Lowe, and but the cast around him is really funny in the show, more so than even him or his son. But that's on Netflix. It's called Unstable.
Cool.
Yeah, that's really. I think it's literally the only thing I watched this week. Just been a crazy week.
One show I've watched. Oh well, I can't really talk about it yet. It hasn't come out in the States yet. It's this Canadian show called Shelved. It's about a library. It kind of feels like a sister show to Abbott Elementary. It just kind of tackles just what libraries are for people. Sometimes it's like a hotel. Sometimes it's like it's an internet connection. It's a place to bathe for some people.
It's still like the only place that doesn't expect you to spend money that you can go sit in for hours.
That's true.
My sister's major was anthropology, and she worked in libraries for as long as I can remember. And some of the stories that she told me, like you can register to vote, you can like take care of like marriage license stuff, you could scan things, you can you can drop your needles off at some of them. It's like a one-stop
place to be productive.
Yeah, for sure. And this show kind of tackles that, and at some point, hopefully, it comes to the States, but it's on CTV right now. For some reason, a couple years ago, I started like using a VPN to look at Canadian TV shows, and this is one that kind of caught my Shelved. Once it gets to like a US premiere date, I'll talk about it a little more. Yeah.
I wanted to real quick, John, the one thing I wanted to ask you about I didn't want to say it. I think it may have been in the trailer, but in Dungeons and Dragons, the scene when they're doing the 5 questions.
Oh my God, I was going to mention that.
Oh my God. I was in the theater. I saw it with a pretty crowded theater, and like that scene plays so well. And it's like the running gag of like you're talking to each other, asking questions, but that counts as one of the 5, and they're questioning these like
they're resurrecting these corpses, Ronald, and like the spell as they resurrect them, they can ask them 5 questions when the corpse returns to death, and so like they'll turn Chris Pine's like turn into his his compatriots and saying like, does that count as a question, or should I do that? And the guy keeps saying yes, sure, and then but it's just they keep having to ask more corpses questions.
Yeah, they have to dig up like this whole battlefield of corpses because they can't get 5 like legitimately good questions out that actually provide answers that help them move on to the next.
And the corpse's information is based around a lot about how they died. So it's like, oh my God, how they died can make it so that their information is useless. You died in this stupid way. Okay, never mind. We're not going to. But it's you're right, Steve. It's like the comic centerpiece maybe of the.
It is, and it definitely plays to that comic piece of the Daly and Goldstein have, like the guys that game, like I don't know. Sorry to circle back, but that I just saw a picture of it on my feed here, and it's like I forgot to mention it to you guys.
No, that was a scene. If there was one scene I was going to mention, that scene too, to say just as far as
I really want you to see it, Ronald. I feel like you would love it. It's so
I'll check it out for sure, man.
All right, cool. So we'll be back next week again. The required viewing pick is the Netflix film from 2019. That's not a Netflix film, but they now have on their platform called I See You. We'll talk about that next week. And movieshmovie.com is our website. youtube.com/movieshmovie podcast. You want to watch the visual experience of this process and this product.
So you can see how much Ronald and I nod during this one part of the show.
This section is like, yep, that's the right that's the website, Steve.
Yep,
that's right. YouTube. You got it right this time.
Called biofeedback. It's us.
On the main site, if you want to find the podcast platform, if you're new to the show and want to subscribe, you can hit them all from the website. And honestly, you know what? Something I realized, I always go to the movieshmovie.com when I mention it, but I feel like the pod.link site is actually a little better. And I got to start crossing that, like mix them up a little bit on the podcast when I mention it. But I sent that to someone recently to send them a copy of our review for Rye Lane, and she was messaging me separately saying like, this is a cool site, like it just looks easy to use, and like I was like, that's good feedback, because I feel like the main thing through Podbean is not that great.
No, it's really not.
It's not. And we got to figure.
It doesn't look like an interface. It's too much like an old school website. It doesn't feel like an interface.
Yeah, the pod.link/movieshmovie is really where I should start sending people.
Feels very modern.
Or we should start sending people or driving, because that site is really easy to use. It's clean. It looks nice. So give both of them a look. Tell us why it's better. Tell us why we should not promote the other one. That would be great feedback. But yeah, again, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week. And as always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.